When I was a young man, travelling all around the world, just started out, and I'd come back from places like Egypt, and I'd go and see my old man, and I'd tell him that I climbed the second largest pyramid in Giza, and I'd been in the Great Pyramid of Giza, and I've laid in the sarcophagus, whatever that was used for, in that special chamber where Napoleon Bonaparte and Alexander the Great and many other people of renown have done that. Napoleon, he stayed in the King's Chamber overnight alone, apparently. And when he was asked by his people, let's say his lieutenants or whatever, what did you find? He says, you don't want to know. You see, at that altitude, at that dimension inside a pyramid, it's supposed to be optimum energy level. And you can actually buy pyramids like made out of tubing or whatever to put over your bed and sleep in. So you sleep 2/3 up from the bottom of the pyramid and you're in that special realm. Well, that's where the King's Chamber was. And so they know a lot of stuff, people, and you know, we can't discount or just think that, oh, just like it was for whatever reason. It was for a very particular reason. So I actually went to these places and I did these things. And I went into Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings. And I'd go back to my old man and I'd tell him what I'd just done. And like, I remember on this particular occasion, I walked in his house, and this is when he was living on his own. Our stepmother had left him a long time ago and took all the kids. And he was reading the newspaper. And I goes in and greeted him. And then he's like, oh, so what's new then? And I said, oh, I just, you know, been to Egypt and I've seen all these wonderful things. Oh, he just like that, kept reading his paper. He never even looked up and said, "Whoa, I bet that was a cool experience. Hello, little guy." I just see my little boy. He goes out in the garden. I got a couple of nuts in my pocket, and there he was. He was making his way down towards the bird table to see if there's any sunflowers down there, but they're all gone. So anyway, I had a couple of nuts, and he jumped on me. And we had a cuddle and I gave him these nuts. And it's just beautiful to see him being his own man. And, you know, just having that relationship with him. It's beautiful. He knows me and he knows, you know, I've looked after him. And I'm a good source of food and comfort. And fatherly, motherly. You know, he didn't really know his father. So anyway, my old man, and I said, well, it's kind of like a big deal, you know, Dad. He said, I've seen it on telly. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. You know, he's one of these fathers who was jealous of the son, usurping him. You know, by that time, I was, you know, a pretty travelled person. I've been to lots of places around the world. And he'd only ever been to France and Spain. That's all he'd ever done in his life. And then he'd hear about me going all around here and everywhere. And when I went to Australia, and I lived in Australia for a year, me and the mother of my daughter, and I came back and he never asked a single question about anything. And like, I heard him saying to like, the stepmother and for anybody else that was listening at the time, oh yeah, you know, Alan's just come back from the other side of the world, a self-made man. And it's kind of like, you know, the old man thought, oh, you've still got a lot to learn, you know, fuck all. You know, which was true, but you know, he never gave me anything, never gave me nothing, never was interested in anything that I ever did. Except if I got in any trouble, He was interested in listening to the trouble. He fed on that. He was one of these, atmosphere hoovers. So, doing all those sort of things, and gathering up treasures in heaven, I suppose, with all these wonderful supernatural experiences. It's got to be something, people, when you lay in the sarcophagus of the Great Pyramid of Giza, in the exact same space on the earth where people like Alexander the Great and Napoleon Bonaparte have laid. Officially you can't do it, but you give, whoever's supposed to be a god there, a pound, and then you can do it. And you can film and you can take photos, otherwise you're not allowed. But what I did is, when I went to the Great Pyramid of Giza, and you go up into the huge open chamber, where you go up before you go through the little tunnels into the King's Chamber. It's absolutely fascinating in there, people. And to see how they built that, and listen to people hypothesizing how they built it, it's remarkable. But I put my camcorder down my shorts, and as soon as I got in there, I opened up my fly, and I had my hand down my shorts, and I was just like this. And that's how I've got film footage inside the Great Pyramid. And I felt very spiritually in touch and evolved having done that. If not only being in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, but being in that same space as Alexander the Great and Napoleon. Come on. Okay, there was a couple of thousand years difference with Alexander the Great, and a couple of hundred years with Napoleon, but that same space, that energy inside the sarcophagus, and so I don't know whether that's attributed to my awakening in some way, small or large. But I've done many things like that, and they've been really spiritually developing. And so what can I say about all these things that I've done in my life? I said in that Rest in Peace video, the only thing that's come out of all that, my 14 years of going down the rabbit holes, is discovering my spiritual connection. A little crocodile clip. You never know when something like that will come in handy. And so I remember reading Carl Gustav Jung, the eminent psychologist and psychoanalyst from the Freudian camp. He went through a period of about 4 years of depression, where he went back to his childhood, and he actually bought shorts, in those days, grade shorts that they used to wear for school. He bought these school type shorts and a school type shirt, and he bought metal cars, and he built a sandpit in his garden, and he spent about 2 years on and off playing in that sandpit, building roads and tunnels and all that sort of thing on his hands and knees, because he'd realised that one of the treasures of this world is to be mentally emancipated and to allow the imagination just to flourish. And I remembered my brother and we had a sandpit in our garden. It's funny, nobody would have a sandpit these days, would they? When I was growing up, let's just say, 50 years ago, we had a big sandpit, and it was like 2.5 feet deep, so you could really dig down tunnels and everything. And I built it with my old man. I used to do all that stuff. Always used to be helping him do all this stuff. And so me and my brother, we used to, play all these games in the sandpit, and then we had guinea pigs, and then we thought it was really cool to build tunnels and houses for our guinea pigs, and action men and all that sort of stuff. And the imagination just, people don't do that these days. Kids don't use their imagination. And Einstein says, when people asked him, what is it attributed to? All these genius things you think about. And he says it's 2% inspiration and 98% imagination. Or something like 2% perspiration, 98% imagination. Because he was given to, just letting his mind drift away. And it is said that he came up with the relativity, the general theory of relativity, when he envisioned himself sitting on a rocket, flying through space at the speed of light. Just thinking about, what is the speed of light? How could we find out the speed of light? And he would sit thinking about these things when he was working in the patent office. He was a patent clerk. Whenever people came in to patent business ideas, he'd get to learn all about their ideas. I suppose, that would, enhance his imagination about things. So, in all these years that I've been doing what I've been doing, and the world travel has been absolutely wonderful. And going down all these rabbit holes, learning about Anunnaki, Nephilim, and giants, and alien greys, and archons, and shapeshifters, and Illuminati, and Masons, and he just goes on and on and on. The Avians, and the Atlanteans, Palladians. It's never ending, and there's always someone coming up with another idea. So someone sent me a video a couple of days ago, and it was this guy that's wrote a book that says that he can absolutely prove to you via your own experiments that there are alien craft everywhere all day long. And so what he's discovered was that by using a 4K camera with infrared during the daytime, he can just focus that on any part of the sky, and he can capture these alien spacecraft buzzing around all over the place. And so he's wrote books about all this stuff, and he says, look, I don't want to tell you what I've seen and what I've done. I want to show you how you can do it, because that's the only way this stuff is ever going to get out. Buy yourself a 4K camera with infrared and go out in daylight with the infrared on and just set it up somewhere, and you'll see this stuff. And so I'm like, well, I don't doubt that stuff, because I know that this thing that we're in is very supernatural, and I've seen exceedingly bizarre things, and I think we have to be very open-minded about other things, existing all around us, because we only perceive our reality with a very, very fine hair type breadth of vibration. We only see with a tiny spectrum. We only hear with a tiny spectrum. We only feel things with the senses that we've got with a tiny spectrum. And when we look at all the animals on this planet, they're all living in a different world with different colours and different humidities, and everything's different depending on their perspective. And how do we suppose, when scientists tell us, oh, this is true and that's true, when they're looking at it from their eyes, human eyes? I think they should have a caveat. which says, well, it's true to some of our human perception, because even humans, we don't see the same colours, and you know, humans don't experience the same world. We're all experiencing it differently, and so there is no one world per se. And so the audacity and the nonsense they speak about, oh, we physicists, you know, we know this and we know that, you know, just from human consciousness at this moment in time. With whatever math they're dealing with, they think they know this and think they know that. And of course, all these things are hypotheses. They're all theory. What do they really know? It's a general theory of relativity. It's the theory of black holes. It's E equals mc squared. You know, so all these things they're theorising because they work things out with math. And so, you know, even gravity is only a theory. You know, gravity is just a word, it's a concept, but what the actual essence of it is, it's inexplicable. They can't explain it. They've got no idea where it comes about. And so, they just put figures, math, and hypotheses to these things, and then, oh, they think they've captured it. They've captured nothing. And, you know, look, let's say in another 5,000 years, human consciousness is going to be changing drastically. How are we going to be perceiving the world then? If we look now at how we perceive the world in comparison to how people of Plato's, Aristotle's time, 2,000 years ago, how do we see the world different compared to the average Joe? With all the information, I think people just forget about the massive amount of information that we've got now, which colours our world. And then we go, oh, this is this and that's that, and all these different things, and it's all so very elementary to us. When the stuff we're speaking about was incomprehensible to our ancestors. And so 50,000 years into the future, all this stuff what we see, I mean, even our senses would have morphed into something else. We would probably, if we're still alive then, we would be, you know, we'd have computer chips, and so we'll be looking at the world from a computer's perspective, gaining all that binary, you know, information. And probably there's an eye then that's been created which enables us to zoom in, you know, like you can on these 4K Bluetooth movies. You can really zoom in. Well, I mean, the eye is very poor. If we had the facility whereby we could just zoom in to the buds on trees at a mile's distance and all this sort of thing, well, we're going to be able to have this stuff. Computers, we will have these eyes, and it wouldn't be too difficult, I wouldn't think, just to replace the eyes that we've got with those super fantastic eyes. So therefore we're going to see the world vastly different. And then if we're looking at the world through a computer, all the colours are going to change and everything, you know. Anyway, what I'm saying here in this video, it's amazing that, you know, it takes 20 minutes to walk up to the shop, and I don't ever manage to get hardly anything said. And so I have to continue again when I come out. But the whole perception, when we enter into outer extremities of consciousness, the world becomes vastly different, and I'm all speaking about this, aren't I? And for instance, like if you go to a zoo or you go to a jungle and you're walking through the path with people out on a trek, and like I have been all around the world, you know, in Guatemala and Belize and all different sorts of tropical rainforests, even in the northern hemisphere in Australia, and you ask people, what are you seeing? I always ask that, what are you seeing? And they go, well, what do you mean, jungle? Well, specifically, what are you seeing? And they go, well, just trees and leaves. Well, okay, close your eyes and then see if you can describe anything that's out here. And they go, oh, now you've got me. Well, in actual fact, I couldn't describe anything. It's green. In actual fact, there's loads of different shades of green and browns. Oh, and I saw something purple. And I think I saw a tinge of pink. In actual fact, there's probably all the colours there. And there's all these leaves and trees and all this stuff. And the human brain isn't taking it in. We're just walking through and we're in our own little world. But if you stop and if you look, then we compute. It's like Steve Austin, the $6 million man. You know, with his bionic eye. We see so much more. And we just need to apply ourselves. And then the whole world around us becomes a different place. And so when I've been out walking with people and I say, what are you seeing? They're not seeing anything. They may as well even not be there. They may just be walking on a treadmill in front of a blue screen or green screen, you know, with something projected onto it. They're not seeing anything. They're not sensing the world. They're closed already because they're all in here and they're walking in these jungle treks, and then they're thinking about, you know, they're hungry and what they're going to eat, or, you know, something that the boyfriend or the girlfriend said, and, you know, any number of things which takes them out of where they are. And so what I'm doing these days is you're well aware, I'm looking very, very closely at the world around me. And the world I live in now isn't anything like the world I grew up in. And when I was running around the whole world, exploring and all those sort of things, I'd see the bigger picture, but invariably I'd never stop to look at the minutiae. And I don't really know when that came about, but most certainly it was very, very evident after the first time I took psilocybin. And even from the early stages of meditation, my perception, my senses, everything was just vastly increased. And now I've been doing that for 14 years, and it's an everyday thing. And so with all the rest of the things that I've done, this is why I'm always saying that, you know, as we evolve, we go out into further and further extremities of concentric circles, which the vast majority of people aren't in. And the world they see is vastly different to the one you see. And of course, those of us that have been down the rabbit hole, and we, you know, have looked into all these crazy stuff, and most of us, I would think, well, there's a lot of evidence for giants, and, you know, even said in the Bible, and if the Bible's supposed to be the word of God, well, he was talking about giants, he was talking about Nephilim, these angels that came down from the outer extremities of the stratosphere and copulated with humans, and all this sort of stuff. And then the Gnostics, they're speaking about the archons, and so all this stuff was around. But of course, we know now what's happened with the vast majority of this stuff. It's been taken away, it's been obfuscated. All the libraries have been burnt, and all the scrolls have been gathered up and put in secret vaults where only the elite are privy to. And so the world that we live in is a ridiculously small and very, very basic world compared to the world that's really going on in all different sorts of dimensions of consciousness. And you don't have to take too much wacky-backy to get outside of your state of consciousness into very, very different paradigms. And in my book I write about a time that I smoked half a joint of cannabis, and I hadn't smoked cannabis for about 20 years, and this half a joint had me completely paralysed for 3 solid hours, and the only thing I could move was my eyes. And I was just like that, lying on the sofa, and I thought, well, fuck, because I can't move, well, I'll just close my eyes and I'll see what I can see, or see what I can create. And so I would just ask. I'd say, well, take me to the pyramids. Bang, I was there. Take me to the Mayan pyramids. Bang, I was there in a jungle with, native Indians standing before me. I could see the glistening sweat on the muscles and the bones in the nose and all this different sort of stuff. Then I went, fuck, take me to 25,000 years in the future. Bang, I'm in space and I'm looking at a planet and I'm looking at a huge spaceship made out of like this buffed stainless steel, and I describe all this stuff in the book, so I won't labour it now. But all these things, where did we go? What on earth were those things? They were absolutely as vivid as anything else is with everyday consciousness. And when you meet beings in the astral, you know that those astral beings are always there. You see, we can go into the astral and the astral beings can come into our dimension. And when I was doing my astral projection, sometimes astral beings would come upon me when I hadn't even left this dimension. I was just about to go into their dimension where you see all these crazy stuff, but some occasions they would end up coming on you or touching you up and doing all different sorts of things when you've not even left your body. And so it's a fine line with these dimensions. When you're teetering on them, you can go over and they can come over to you. There's a whole lot more going on, people. And I had a right rant, didn't I, not too long ago. And I said, you don't know, you're fucking born, what's going on here? And then someone says, oh, that sounds interesting, can you elaborate? I've done all that. For years I've been speaking about my spiritual experiences and all those sort of things. And they're all in the book. So, that'll be ready in January, February, latest, I think. And so, grab a copy of that and into other worlds.